more money than you'll ever need, work only when you want to, and absolutely love it when you do. And never again would any of you have to lie in bed at night worrying about money. I hope all of you would be willing to write and commit and make a full-blown commitment to yourselves and take action right now in the present moment. Now, I have 3 promises for you before we get started.
None of which you're going to get the presentation.
The first promise is that you're going to see our visuals very soon. The second promise is I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to help you to buy low. What I mean by that is I'm going to teach you how to buy the best bank-owned properties. Get this. Before they're listed on MLS, before 99% of other investors even know those properties are out there and exist. The second promise, I'm going to teach you how to rent smart. In fact, I'll be teaching you how to rent your properties in days and weeks, not months. And other investors have no idea how to do this. And the third promise, I'm going to teach you how to sell high, and I mean high. Imagine if you were able to sell your properties in today's market with no buyer discounts and 0 real estate commissions. Well, that's where we're going to go today. Are we getting there, Judson?
It's almost there. I'm
awesome.
Watching the little thing count down right now.
All right. So let's talk about testimonials. You're going to notice in my webinar tonight, you're not going to see a whole lot of some of these presentations. You look at every second slide is a check of somebody you don't know. I made this and I made that. Now I will show you a few testimonials just so you can see some of my students in action. But I believe in giving you a bit of a different testimonial to get started. There's a very obscure magazine called Fortune magazine.
Right. Never heard
Some of you have heard of that, yeah. And a handful of years ago, Fortune magazine decided to make a study for their readers as the best ways to get rich in real estate. And what we're going to talk about tonight, the Buy Low, Rent Smart, Sell High strategy, was featured and recommended by Fortune magazine among the top 5 wealth building models for all real estate investors. And I think if nothing else tonight, we can all agree if it's good enough for Fortune magazine, it's probably good enough for us all to learn about tonight.
That's right.
Okay, so let's have a quick look at some possible questions before we might get started here. Some questions you probably have. Does this work everywhere? It does. I have students all over the country. Can you do this without using your own money? Yes, you can do it without using your own money. And yes, you can do it without using your own credit. What about if you don't have experience? Well, if you're just getting started, there may be no easier way than buying properties from banks. Do you need to be a real estate agent? No, you do not need to be a real estate agent if you want to be a real estate investor. What about if you don't have a lot of time? Well, time's a big one. We're going to talk about time in a second, but if you do not have a lot of time, there may be no easier way than buying properties directly from banks, because I'll show you tonight it doesn't take a whole lot of time. Now, what about the supply of these deals? Well, the great irony today, everybody, is that there's fewer banks than there were about 12 months ago, but there's more bank-owned properties. So there will always be a great supply of bank-owned properties. And finally, we're not going to have this economy that we have today forever. Will my strategy be a good strategy to base your investments on for forever, for as long as you're investing? Well, I've been doing this for 20 years, and the beauty and the simplicity of what we do is that you only need to have 2 things. Number 1, you need to have a supply of bank-owned properties. Number 2, you have to have a pool of people who want home ownership but can't get a good loan today. You will always have those 2 things in any and every economy, but you've never had them in quite the numbers that you do as you do right now.
Nowhere near that.
Right. So I think we're ready to go.
Almost, yeah.
Almost. So once we're ready, Judson will tell you where to advance the slide to, since we've had our technical issues. Let's talk a bit about potential before we get started. So $1 million isn't what it used to be, is it? I don't think a lot of people get as excited about it, well, I'm a millionaire, as we used to be. But $10 million is enough where we can all certainly have a wonderful life and a great retirement. The question is, though, how does a real estate investor get from a number like $1 million, which isn't what it used to be, to a number like $10 million, a number that can really change our lives? I'll give you all a hint. You're all holding on to some of this right now.
Right.
The answer is cash. You have to be able to create cash from your investing today to have enough money to buy enough properties to reach a number like $10 million. At some point, you have to create cash. So I want you to remember this question, because in approximately 47 minutes, if Judson has more trouble, 147 minutes, I'm going to answer the exact question of where the cash comes from to buy enough properties to reach a number like 10 million, a number that can give us all the freedom and the lifestyle that we want. And when I show you this, for all of us, it will be extremely realistic and achievable for everybody. So, how are we doing, Judson? Almost there?
Yeah, we got the presentation up. I've had to sort of rig it a little bit.
Okay.
But we got something.
We got something.
I don't know what slide we're supposed to be on right now, though.
Do you want to copy this on a jump drive and bring it over?
It's the technology decided that your file, which is not a surprise, was too big.
Okay.
So I think they want you to do a shorter presentation. Let's see what we can get here.
Well, I think you got to go in there.
There we go.
Let's go ahead and advance it a bit.
Okay.
Get to where we were. We talked about this, and I do want to give you one testimonial, everybody. And this gentleman, his name is Hans van der Kolk. And one of the things that's so special about his story, in the United States is a country of immigrants, and Hans also immigrated from Europe. And his dream growing up in Europe was to be an entrepreneur in the greatest country in the world, the United States. Right. Shortly after arriving, Hans had a wife and 2 kids and was buried in a full-time job. And he looked around, and he wasn't very close to his dream of becoming a business owner in the United States. Now, then he began to buy property using our strategy, the buy low, rent smart, sell high strategy. Within a couple of years, Hans created enough cash to put it as a down payment and buy a business with the cash he made from the sale of the first few homes. And this guy bought a business with the money he made part-time from our investment strategy.
Not
bad. But where the story gets so special, everybody, is that when we were interviewed by Fortune magazine, it was before I was traveling the country, before I was doing webinars with great people like Judson. And
technologically challenged people too.
And when we were interviewed, so I didn't have at that time hundreds and thousands of students I could refer Fortune magazine to around the country, because they said, all right, this sounds almost too good to be true, this kind of money. Give us the names of people other than you that are making the kind of money that you're making. So we had a few students who we taught, and one of those was Hans, and they interviewed him. And for the same reason I think his story is so special, your classic American dream success story, an immigrant who comes in, moves into the United States, starts with nothing, and builds himself, becomes quite a success. So did Fortune magazine, and I am proud to be able to share with you that I have a student whose success story was featured in Fortune magazine. And anytime I present, whether live or on a webinar, I always say it'd be wonderful for me to give a whole list of 100, 200, 300, 400 other students all over the country from Get Real who made it the next time we were interviewed by Money Magazine or Financial Times. So people asked a little bit about how I got started.
I'm assisting you today.
Pardon?
I'm assisting you today.
Let's go ahead and advance. So,
okay.
So how did I get started? Shortly after college, I moved up to Atlanta, Georgia to seek my fortune in the business world. I got a job with a company called Global Marketing Associates. And my title was International Logistics Coordinator. It's a very fancy sound title, but what I did
fit
was...
on a business card?
Believe me, it did. Because that was before they had like emails and everything else.
Okay.
But what I did, everybody, my job was not nearly as exciting as the title. I sat at a desk for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. I made phone calls, I sent faxes, and I sent telexes. And I was responsible for the logistics of picking up loads of frozen poultry from poultry plants in the southeast, loading the poultry onto trucks, trucking the poultry to the port, reloading the poultry onto seaworthy containers, putting the containers onto ships, and shipping the poultry to Asia. Guys, gals, my job sucked. First time I ever spoke in public, somebody comes up to me in the back of the room and says, Andy, what's the single greatest reason for your success as a real estate investor? And I said, frozen chicken. He didn't get it, but I did. And so if it wasn't for frozen chicken, I wouldn't be doing this great webinar here today.
Whoops, looks like our 10 minutes of fame's up.
So if you want to see the rest of the video and you can't watch on Google and all those other places, make sure you go to the reiminute.com and watch the video there. You get to see more and more of our pretty smiley faces.
That's right. Don't miss out.